As podcast guesting continues to climb to the top of the list for professionals and for brands that want to get their message into the world, it's come time for us, the people being guests on podcasts, to really start to determine whether a show is going to be beneficial for us to be on or if it's something that we should skip. Hey, my name is Alex Sanfilippo, and if I've not met you before, I'm really excited to spend this time with you. And I want to share 7 different factors I've come up with to help you determine if a podcast is the right fit for you to be a guest on. Now, I say the right fit for you to be a guest on. It's not like you just have all the options, right? You're still going to have to pitch. And below this video, I have a link to help you understand how to pitch really well so you can get on shows. What we're talking about today are the 7 factors for determining if it's even the right show for you to pitch to be on. So I'm going to get straight into these points here. I'm going to go through them really quick. Number 1 is the quality of the content. I tell everybody who's going to be a guest on a podcast, listen before you pitch. Like, listen before you go on. And I'll repeat that a few times. But this first idea of listening for the sake of the quality of the content means, would you listen to the show if you weren't a guest on it? Would you recommend this show to someone if you weren't a guest on it? If you answer no to one or both these things, maybe it's just not the right show for you. If it's annoying to you or you're like, I couldn't share this with anybody, maybe it's best for you just to say, you know what, that's not the right show for me. Listen to determine that. That's a really important factor. Number 2, the niche of the show. If you don't know what a show is about and you have to ask, that's usually a little bit of a red flag because a lot of the general shows are just shows that cover a wide range of topic. They don't really do as well as they used to, and listeners churn really quick, meaning they might listen to an episode or half of an episode and they leave and don't come back. You want to be able to look at the show and say, yep, I listened to this for a few minutes. I already know that where this is going and who it's serving are the same people that I know I can help and serve as well. This is a good show for me to be on. That's what you want to determine by this idea of niche of the show. Number 3, personality of the host. Again, this goes back to listening. Listen for a little bit. Do you feel that you and the host would gel? Do you see that there's potential synergy between you? Does the host talk over the guests, and does that bother you? Does the host interject a lot, and that bother you? Does the host tell jokes that you're like, I don't get it, right? Like, is the joke try to be, or the host try to be witty with jokes, and you're like, I still don't understand what's going on here? Maybe there's not going to be good synergy there, and that would make me tell you to maybe let that show be for somebody else. Go find another one. You want to really think about the host personality side. Is there potential synergy here? Yes or no? Again, listening to this, even for just a few minutes, will help you understand if it's going to be the right fit or not. All right, number 4, alignment for organic discoverability. These are big words, right? Alignment for organic discoverability. What I mean by this is you want to look at what the show is titled, the description of it, and then also the episode titles and descriptions as well. Are they aligned for what someone would search in the player apps for or in search engines for? Here's an example of this. Let's imagine there's 2 podcasts, both have really great content, both are on the same topic, and you could be a guest on either one of them. You tell me which one is going to be the better fit. Podcast example number 1, the Alex 2.0 show. The latest episode, that's the name of the show, the latest episode is titled A Conversation with Jeff. Okay? Example number 2, Big Wave Surfers is the title of the show. The latest episode is How to Avoid Getting Bit by a Shark While You're Surfing with Jeff. Which show would you say would be more aligned for a random person to find, therefore meaning which show which one's better to be on? You probably guessed B, the second one, right? And the reality is that's right, because people will search for that. And as these search engines that are inside of the player apps get better and smarter, you want to make sure that the content that you're part of is aligned to be discovered on these player apps. A Conversation with Jeff means literally nothing. Alex 2.0 means literally nothing. Big Wave Surfers, How to Avoid Getting Bit by a Shark, that is things that people will actually search for. In the future, you want that to be discovered. So you want to make sure that you're looking at shows saying, yeah, they've done a good job describing what episodes and what the show is about. Again, that's where I want to be. Number 5, downloads per episode. Now, I know that you probably think I know where I'm going with this, and I'm going to keep this really short. I share more in a link below, so I encourage you, go check that because you've got to have the right perspective on this. Downloads do not matter. Downloads do not matter. I can promise you, you can wear yourself out chasing the same 500 podcasts that everyone else on the planet is chasing because, quote unquote, they're the only ones with enough listenership worthy of me being on, right? Get off your high horse. Let your ego be to the side, right? The reality is if it has one person listening and it's someone that you can serve, it is worth it. And also, podcast listenership are like people sitting in seats with you on stage as the guest with the host, right? If there's 30 people in a room, is that room not worth being in? It's exactly the same thing. So stop saying I need 500,000 people listening every week or it's not worth my time. Again, there's only a few shows that actually have that. I can promise you there are millions of people chasing just those few shows, and they're beating themselves up to try to get there, and ultimately they're quitting podcast guesting because they can't seem to get any result. So Don't chase downloads. Look at the first 4 things I shared. Go back through this, rewind it, whatever year we're in, right? Go back through those first 4 things and say, okay, am I really getting these right? And then don't focus on downloads. Number 6, reviews on the podcast. Much like the downloads, the review count doesn't matter. As a matter of fact, on Apple Podcast, the average podcast only has 6 reviews. That doesn't say anything good about the show. What you need to do is actually scroll to that section on Apple Podcast and read those reviews. They don't even need to all be 5 stars, because there might be a 1-star review and it could be like, this host really challenged my beliefs and it made me uncomfortable. You might say, you know what? I resonate with that. I like that. This is a good show, right? Or you might be able to see, okay, this is very impactful. These people's lives were changed by this, or they found this show really funny, right? You can look at it and determine those things alongside the host, saying, yep, I can get on board with these things. So look at reviews, not for the count, not for the star rating, but instead for what are people saying about the show. This helps you get into the mind of the listener a little bit more. The final point here, number 7, is trusting your gut. Trusting your gut. As a podcaster myself, guest and host, there have been occasions that I regrettably have to share here, but where I knew that I shouldn't be on this podcast, or I shouldn't have this guest on. And I went against my gut and decided to make it happen. And every single time it's been a regret. And if you're a experienced podcast guest or host checking this out, you're saying, yep, I've done that too. Let's stop. Let's just trust our gut. Even if the first 4 things make sense and there's high downloads or low downloads, there's good reviews on it. If all that stuff, the first 6 things make sense, but for some reason you're like, it doesn't feel right, just skip it. Move on to the next thing. The nice thing about podcasting, there's always new shows coming out and there's always more options for you. So these are the 7 factors that I use to determine if a podcast is worth being a guest on. And again, I'll have some more information below, including how to pitch. And I hope this was really helpful for you today.